A Legacy of Defiance. Dominique de Villepin and the Politics of Principle. Dominique de Villepin is no stranger to controversy. Throughout his career, he has often found himself at the center of political storms, unafraid to voice his opinions and take a stand on contentious issues. His name is etched in the annals of history for a moment of defiance, a moment that would define his legacy and set him apart from many of his contemporaries. A moment when, as French foreign minister, he stood before the United Nations and delivered a resounding nod to the impending invasion of Iraq. This speech was not just a political statement, it was a bold declaration of his principles and his vision for a just world order. This act of courage, broadcast globally, cemented his reputation as a man of principle, unafraid to challenge even the most powerful nations. It was a defining moment that showcased his commitment to peace and diplomacy over war and aggression. But de Villepin's commitment to justice extends far beyond the borders of Iraq. His dedication to upholding international law and advocating for global justice has been a consistent theme throughout his career. It is rooted in a profound belief in international law and a deep-seated empathy for the oppressed. He has always championed the cause of those who are marginalized and voiceless, believing that true justice can only be achieved when every individual is treated with dignity and respect. This empathy has found a particularly poignant expression in his unwavering support for the Palestinian cause. For de Villepin, the plight of the Palestinian people is a deeply personal issue, one that he has passionately advocated for on numerous international platforms. For de Villepin, the Palestinian struggle is not merely a geopolitical issue, it is a matter of fundamental human rights. He views their fight for freedom and self-determination as a universal struggle that resonates with oppressed people everywhere. It's about the right to self-determination, to live in dignity and freedom on one's own land. De Villepin believes that every nation and every individual has the inherent right to determine their own destiny, free from external interference and oppression. This unwavering stance has placed him at odds with many, even within his own country. His outspoken support for Palestine has often been met with criticism and opposition, but he remains undeterred. Yet, he persists, driven by a conviction that transcends political expediency. For de Villepin, principles are not negotiable, and he's willing to face any challenge to uphold them. De Villepin's unwavering commitment to Palestine is a testament to his character. It reflects his broader philosophy of standing up for what is right, regardless of the personal or political cost. He is a man not afraid to stand alone, to raise his voice against injustice, no matter the cost. In a world where political convenience often trumps moral integrity, Dominique de Villepin remains a beacon of principled leadership and unwavering dedication to justice. The voice of dissent, challenging the Iraq invasion on the world stage. The year was 2003. The world was on edge, with tensions escalating by the day. The world watched with bated breath as the drums of war beat louder. Every news broadcast, every headline seemed to bring the specter of conflict closer. The United States, led by President George W. Bush, was poised to invade Iraq. The administration was resolute, convinced of the necessity of their actions. The justification, the alleged possession of weapons of mass destruction. These claims were repeated endlessly, creating a climate of fear and urgency. In this tense atmosphere, Dominique de Villepin took to the podium at the United Nations. The world held its breath, waiting to hear what he had to say. His voice, calm yet resolute, echoed through the chamber. He spoke with a clarity and conviction that cut through the prevailing narrative. He challenged the rush to war, questioning the evidence presented and warning of the dire consequences of military intervention. His words were a stark contrast to the rhetoric of inevitability that had dominated the discourse. His words resonated with millions around the world. People from all walks of life found a voice in his speech, a voice that echoed their own fears and hopes. They yearned for peace, for a different path. The global community was desperate for an alternative to the looming conflict. The responsibility of the Security Council is immense, he declared. It is a responsibility that goes beyond politics and power. It is the responsibility of peace, a peace that must be preserved and protected at all costs. His speech was not just a critique of American foreign policy, it was a call to action for the international community. It was a plea for diplomacy, for multilateralism, for the very soul of the United Nations. He reminded the world of the principles upon which the UN was founded. The impact of de Villepin's speech was undeniable. It sparked a global conversation, challenging the narrative that war was the only solution. It galvanized global opposition to the war, exposing the deep divisions within the international community. The debate was no longer confined to the halls of power. It was now a global dialogue. While the invasion ultimately proceeded, de Villepin's words left an enduring legacy. They became a symbol of resistance and a testament to the power of dissent. They served as a stark reminder of the importance of dissent, the need to hold power accountable. In a world where the voices of the few can shape the destiny of the many, his speech remains a beacon of hope and a call to action for future generations. A history of injustice. De Villepin's long-standing commitment to Palestine. De Villepin's advocacy for Palestine is not a recent phenomenon. It is deeply intertwined with his understanding of history, particularly the events of 1948. The creation of Israel, he argues, while a response to the horrors of the Holocaust, came at a heavy price for the Palestinian people. The displacement, the dispossession, the denial of their right to a homeland, these are wounds that continue to fester. For de Villepin, understanding the roots of the conflict is essential. It is not about taking sides, it is about acknowledging the injustices of the past and their enduring impact on the present. He refuses to accept the status quo, the narrative that portrays the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as intractable. Instead, he sees it as a political problem with a political solution. This solution, he insists, must be based on international law, on dialogue, and on a recognition of the legitimate aspirations of both peoples. De Villepin's historical perspective is crucial. It allows him to see the Palestinian struggle not as an isolated incident, but as part of a larger fight for justice and self-determination. Section 4. A form of cowardice. Holding the powerful accountable. Dominique de Villepin, a former French Prime Minister and a seasoned diplomat, is unsparing in his criticism of what he sees as the failures of the international community. His words are not just a critique but a call to action, urging global leaders to reflect on their roles and responsibilities. He reserves his harshest words for the United Nations, an institution he believes has fallen short of its founding ideals. The UN, established to foster peace and cooperation, has, in his view, become a shadow of its former self. The UN, in his view, has become paralyzed by realpolitik, unable or unwilling to take decisive action to protect the rights of the Palestinian people. This paralysis, he argues, is not just a failure of policy, but a moral failing that has dire consequences for those living under occupation. He points to the endless cycle of resolutions, condemned but unenforced, as evidence of this impotence. These resolutions, he says, are little more than words on paper, lacking the force and commitment needed to bring about real change. His critique extends to Western governments, particularly France and the United States. These nations, he contends, have a special responsibility due to their influence and power on the global stage. He accuses them of hypocrisy, of paying lip service to the two-state solution while continuing to support policies that entrench the occupation. This duplicity, he believes, undermines any genuine efforts towards peace and justice. He singles out French President Emmanuel Macron, criticizing his close ties with Israel and his reluctance to challenge its policies. Macron's stance, according to de Villepin, reflects a broader trend of Western leaders prioritizing strategic alliances over human rights. American diplomacy, under successive administrations, is also subject to his scrutiny. The US, with its significant influence, has the power to shape the course of international relations, yet it often falls short of using this power for the greater good. De Villepin argues that the US, blinded by its unwavering support for Israel, has become a barrier to peace, its actions fueling the cycle of violence. This support, he asserts, is not just a political stance, but a catalyst for ongoing conflict and suffering. His message is clear: the international community, led by its most powerful members, must be held accountable for its inaction. This accountability, he believes, is essential for any meaningful progress towards peace and justice. Silence, he warns, is not neutrality, it is a form of complicity. By remaining silent, the international community is not merely passive, but actively contributing to the perpetuation of injustice and suffering. Section 5. A two-state solution is not an option, it's an obligation. De Villepin's vision for peace. At the heart of de Villepin's vision for peace lies an unwavering commitment to the two-state solution. He views this not as a distant aspiration, but as an immediate obligation, a fundamental requirement for a just and lasting peace. He argues that the creation of a viable, independent Palestinian state Existing side by side with Israel in peace and security is the only way to ensure the rights and dignity of both peoples. Central to this vision is the issue of settlements. De Villepin condemns the continued expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank as illegal and a major obstacle to peace. He argues that the settlements are not only a violation of international law, but also a deliberate attempt to undermine the possibility of a contiguous and viable Palestinian state. Section 6. Beyond diplomacy, the moral imperative of Palestinian statehood. For de Villepin, the Palestinian struggle transcends the realm of geopolitics. It is at its core a moral issue, a question of fundamental human rights. He argues that the denial of Palestinian statehood is not just a political injustice, but a stain on the conscience of humanity. He reminds the world that the Palestinian people, like all peoples, have the right to self-determination, the right to live in freedom and dignity in their own land. De Villepin's stance resonates with a growing global movement for Palestinian rights. It speaks to a deep-seated sense of fairness, a recognition that the status quo is morally untenable. He challenges the world to move beyond the tired.
Let's be real. How often do we see world leaders actually speak truth to power? Not often enough, right? In a world filled with political rhetoric and carefully crafted statements, genuine honesty seems to be a rare commodity. We live in an era where every word is scrutinized, every action analyzed, and yet the truth often remains elusive. It's like honesty has become this rare endangered species in the world of politics. Politicians often dance around the issues, offering half-truths and vague promises. They seem more concerned with maintaining their image and securing votes than addressing the real problems that affect people's lives. We're talking about a world where everyone's tiptoeing around issues, afraid to say what needs to be said. The fear of backlash, the fear of losing support, the fear of standing alone, these fears often silence the voices that need to be heard the most. The uncomfortable truths, the inconvenient realities, the things that make us squirm in our seats but are essential for progress. These are the truths that challenge the status quo, that force us to confront our own biases and shortcomings. But every now and then someone steps up, someone who refuses to be silenced, who refuses to play the game. These individuals are rare, but they are the ones who make a difference. They are the ones who remind us of the power of truth. Someone who's willing to risk it all, reputation, career, maybe even their safety, to stand up for what's right. These are the true leaders, the ones who put principles above politics, who prioritize justice over popularity, to speak out against injustice, even when it's unpopular, to challenge the powerful, even when it means standing alone. These are the acts of courage that inspire us, that give us hope for a better future. To call a spade, even when everyone else is busy pretending it's a diamond-encrusted teaspoon. It's about cutting through the noise, the distractions, and getting to the heart of the matter. It's about being real, being honest, and being brave. These are the people who inspire us, the ones who remind us of what true leadership looks like. They show us that integrity and courage are not just words, but actions that can change the world. The ones who give us hope. Hope that honesty and integrity can prevail, that truth can triumph over deception. They remind us that even in the darkest times, there are those who will stand up and speak out. Dominique de Villepin is one of those people. His courage and conviction serve as a beacon of hope, a reminder that truth and justice are worth fighting for. In a world where honesty is a rare commodity, he stands as a testament to the power of speaking truth to power. Dominique de Villepin, the former Prime Minister of France, didn't shy away from addressing the Palestinian issue, a topic that many world leaders often tiptoe around. He didn't just offer the usual diplomatic platitudes that are often heard in such high-stakes discussions. Instead, he called for a two-state solution, clear and simple. A vision that has been a cornerstone of peace efforts for decades. De Villepin acknowledged the deep injustices faced by the Palestinian people who have endured decades of conflict and displacement. He demanded their right to a sovereign and independent state, a place they can call their own, free from occupation and oppression. This wasn't just some off-the-cuff remark made in passing. This was a calculated risk, a deliberate choice to use his platform to amplify a cause that many would rather ignore or sideline, and he did it knowing full well the potential backlash, the potential consequences that could arise from such a bold stance. That's what makes his stance so powerful and so commendable. He put principle above politics, courage above comfort, showing a rare kind of leadership. He chose to be a voice for the voiceless, even if it meant facing the wrath of the powerful, even if it meant standing alone in a sea of opposition. His actions remind us that true leadership is not about popularity or playing it safe. It's about standing up for what is right, even when it's not convenient. In a world where political leaders often prioritize their own interests, de Villepin's unwavering commitment to justice and peace sets a powerful example. His voice, echoing through the halls of international diplomacy, serves as a beacon of hope for those who have been silenced for too long. It is a reminder that the fight for justice is ongoing and that every voice, no matter how powerful or small, can make a difference. Dominique de Villepin's courage and conviction continue to inspire, urging us all to speak out and stand up for those who cannot do so for themselves. In the end, it's not just about the words spoken, but the actions taken and the legacy left behind for future generations. Here's the thing about speaking truth to power: it comes at a price, a steep price. When you decide to stand up and voice the uncomfortable truths, you are not just making a statement, you are challenging the very foundation of established power structures. Politically, you risk alienating allies, becoming a target for smear campaigns, and losing your seat at the table of power. The political arena is unforgiving, and those who dare to disrupt the status quo often find themselves isolated, their support networks eroded. Doors that were once open might suddenly slam shut. Opportunities that seemed within reach can vanish overnight, leaving you on the outside looking in. The corridors of power are not kind to dissenters. Economically, the consequences can be even more dire. Financial markets are sensitive to political instability, and the ripple effects can be felt far and wide. Investors may pull out, stock markets can plummet, and the economic stability of a nation can be thrown into chaos. Countries might face sanctions, lose valuable trade deals, and see their economies crumble under pressure. The global economy is interconnected, and the actions of one nation can have far-reaching consequences. Trade routes can be disrupted, and industries that rely on international cooperation can suffer immensely. Powerful lobbies and interest groups can wield their influence to punish those who dare to challenge the status quo. These entities have deep pockets and extensive networks, and they are not afraid to use their resources to maintain their grip on power. It's a high-stakes game, and the deck is stacked against those who choose to play by their own rules. The risks are enormous, and the rewards are uncertain. Yet some leaders are willing to take that gamble, driven by a sense of duty and a commitment to their principles. But for some leaders, like de Villepin, the price of silence is far greater than the cost of speaking out. They understand that true leadership requires courage and the willingness to face the consequences, no matter how severe. In the end, it is their unwavering resolve that leaves a lasting impact on the world stage. De Villepin's stance on Palestine wasn't just about one man's opinion. It was a powerful indictment of the global tendency to prioritize power over justice. It exposed the hypocrisy of a world that claims to champion human rights while turning a blind eye to the suffering of the Palestinian people. His courage serves as a beacon, reminding us that true leadership is not about clinging to power or bowing to pressure. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult, even when it's unpopular. It's about having the moral backbone to say enough is enough, and to demand better for all people, regardless of their nationality, religion, or ethnicity. Now let's talk about the deafening silence from other world leaders, particularly those in the West. Where's the outrage? Where's the sense of urgency? We're looking at you, Macron. We see you, Biden. The continued inaction, the lukewarm statements, the unwillingness to take a firm stand against injustice, it speaks volumes. It tells us that political expediency trumps moral imperative, that realpolitik reigns supreme. It's a sad state of affairs when the so-called leaders of the free world are missing in action on one of the most pressing human rights issues of our time. Section 6, Power versus Justice, a Global Crisis of Conscience. This isn't just about Palestine, this is about a fundamental crisis of conscience that's gripping the world. We see it everywhere, from the Uyghur Muslims in China to the Rohingya in Myanmar. We see it in the way we treat refugees, the way we address climate change, the way we ignore systemic inequality. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to continue down this path of moral apathy, where power trumps justice and silence reigns supreme? Or are we going to demand better from our leaders, from ourselves, from each other? Section 7. Moral integrity, the cornerstone of effective leadership. True leadership requires moral integrity. It demands that we look beyond our own self-interest, beyond the next election cycle, beyond the bottom line. It requires us to recognize the inherent dignity and worth of every human being and to act accordingly. It's not about being popular, it's not about being liked, it's about doing what's right, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular. It's about having the courage to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. Section 8. The urgency of now. A call to action for world leaders. The time for complacency is over. The time for empty promises is past. We need action, and we need it now. We need world leaders to step up, to find their backbones, to rediscover their moral compasses. We need them to prioritize justice and peace over political calculations and economic interests. We need them to stand on the right side of history, even if it means standing alone. The world is watching, and the time for action is now. Section 9. A world united, envisioning a future of justice and peace. Imagine a world where leaders are defined not by their power, but by their principles. Imagine a world where justice isn't a bargaining chip, but a fundamental right. Imagine a world where peace isn't just the absence of war, but the presence of understanding, compassion, and respect for all. This is the world we must strive to create. This is the world that de Villepin's courage calls us to build. It won't be easy, but it's a fight worth fighting. It's a future worth fighting for, because in the end, silence is not an option.